Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. It's always a little bit weird. I see my face on the screen before I see yours, so I'm like, is Will here yet, or is it just me?
Yeah, I'm just loading in.
But yeah, it should be fun today. But yeah, before we get into it, big shout out to our sponsors. We'll start with the two obvious ones: Black Box, Will's brokerage, HG Ships. If you're looking to be an agent, I'd love to talk to you. And then yeah, we have a new one, multi-service fuel card. They've been around since 1978. Awesome people over there. If you're looking for fuel cards, whether you're a brokerage carrier, great people over there. Reach out to Jessica or anyone over there. Sales Dash CRM. I've known Josh for a minute. The only freight specific CRM I can think of. Everyone I know is who loves it. I know Josh personally, just absolute, great guy. And then I don't know. You want to touch on Trio and Tafts?
Yeah, so just say one more thing about Sales Dash. Black Box uses Sales Dash. All of my people love it. It's very intuitive and it's already pre-built out for you, as opposed to if you go somewhere like Salesforce where you got to build it out. Josh comes with a freight brokerage background, so it was developed with a purpose, right? So we really enjoy it. And then Trio Inc. They do nearshoring services. All the cool graphics you see with the two dogs is Trio. Black Box also uses a few of their people. They do great work. And then our banner sponsor is Taft's. Matt, you want to tell the go-to Taft story?
Yeah, I mean, we've told it before, but I mean, their communication is top notch. They have someone answering the phones till midnight during the week. We had somebody reach out with the factoring question, and Orion was willing to get on the phone with them at 8 p.m. on a weeknight. So I mean, in this kind of market too, I mean, a lot of companies are going through financial issues. I mean, factoring is like a necessity, and having people you can reach, and they're fantastic.
Yeah, great group. So for this episode 19, so last week was TMS centric. This week we're diving into a little bit more of the training. I'm really excited about this guest. He's got an extensive background in the history. He's done some really impressive things. Was co-founder of MoLo, which was acquired for a large sum, right? And now he's the CEO and founder of a company called Journey. And we'll add Will in here and let him tell us a little bit about what he's doing currently.
What's up, guys? How we doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing really well. It's been a busy week, but productive. Glad to have a chance to jam with y'all for a little bit.
Yeah, busy's good, right?
Yeah, as long as it's productive.
Yeah, no kidding. I guess it depends how it chooses.
Are you in Chicago right now, or are you traveling?
I'm in Chicago. It's nice to be in the same spot for a little bit, so enjoying it.
Oh, 100%. Well, yeah, we're excited. I mean, I guess we kind of ask everyone, that comes on to kind of start, and it's always, kind of cool to hear, but, kind of just give us a, brief history of yourself, kind of how you got into, into freight and, kind of where you're at now.
Beautiful. So what a wild game freight is. And young me probably never thought I would be in transportation, but I'm really glad that I found the industry. It's been incredible. So I've been in sales most of my life. I got a sales job at 18 selling Cutco kitchen cutlery, which taught me most everything I know about building a book of business and battling adversity in sales at a really young age. Taught me how to cold call, all that good stuff. So I did that all throughout college. And the reason why that's relevant is it's the only thing I talked about in most of my interviews. So everyone was like, oh my gosh, you made money selling knives? I'm like, yeah, it was great. I made a ton of money doing it because it's a really, really tough job, like straight cold calling. You only make money if you sell. And then one of my really good friends that I sold Cutco with and met when I was 18 was a very good customer sales rep at Coyote. So I got into freight in 2014. I left Kimberly-Clark. I was doing outside sales for them. Interviewed at Coyote. I was like, man, this place is really cool. There's a lot of energy. Money's there to be made if you're willing to put the work in. And I don't know, man. I was like, look, you telling me I can pick up the phone, call all day, and what I need to do is get drivers to agree to a rate that all of us think makes sense, and I can make commission. I'm like, sign me up. Let's ride. Like, I'm ready to go. So that's how I got into freight. January of 2014, I was there for 3 years, left to go to Transport America on the asset side. So I was a director of business development for them. Really cool career opportunity. Went from I was managing customer sales reps at Coyote from 2015 through January of 2017. And I went to Transport America, learned what it's like to be able to, quote a bid with drop trailers and all this cool stuff. Really big, successful organization. And I left there to co-found MoLo. So some of the old Coyote guys I used to work with, Andrew Silver and Stephen Mathis, a couple of guys, we reconnected and started talking about what it could be like to build an organization like MoLo. We launched the business officially July of 2017. And I spent the first 3 years helping to build a lot of processes. And it's really where I solidified, my love for training, because I think it allows you to be able to scale a business. If you really want to grow, you need to have processes that allow people to know what good is and then get the right type of output, so that if you go and hire people that don't have experience, they know how to do the job. So I had the opportunity to train our first 200 people. It was super crazy. I learned a lot. And then this would have been 17 through January of 2020. In January of 2020, I moved over to our shipper-facing sales side, which that's where most of my experience is. I helped build out that team. And then I managed that group through the point that we were acquired by ArcBest. I stayed on until May of 2023. And then in May, I felt really good about what we had accomplished. I was ready to walk away. I wanted to take some time to travel. So I spent last summer in Europe, and I did nothing but see the world. Yeah, it was sick. See the world, have some fun, unplug. It was the first time I'd unplugged in a long time. Like, I played football in college. I'm used to, nose to the grindstone type stuff. So that was enjoyable. And I knew I was going to start Journey. I just wasn't sure all the services we were going to offer. One of which is obviously recruiting. And then the next most prominent one is training. So it's been a lot of fun building this business. I have an incredible team. I love working with them. They work their tails off. So it's been a blast so far.
Yeah, awesome, man. Yeah, I appreciate you giving us the background. Those are some really great organizations to have the opportunity to work with early on, right? Coyote and then Transport America, two really solid groups. And I really like that you brought the Cutco thing, man. I actually had a younger guy come over to my house, or, he was doing, I guess he did like a cold knock, right? He rang my doorbell. He was selling Cutco, and he just wouldn't leave me alone, asking for referrals, and actually tried to hire him for the brokerage, because I was impressed. It's like, hey, man, like you should come work for my company. Didn't work out. He's going to college or something. Man, he was really young, like 18, still in high school. I was like, man, you got it. You should come here. You can make a lot of money. So yeah, I think that's a really valuable thing to do, right? Work for Cutco teaches you a lot of stuff that probably serves you in your career.
100%, man. I wouldn't be where I am right now had I not had that experience from 18 through 21. It was huge.
Yeah, man. Sales early on. I think that's such a good thing for young people to learn how to do. So tell us a little bit about Journey. So I know you said it's some recruiting, right? But then you've got some exciting new offerings, right? Tell us a little bit about. I saw something on it. You got like an AI training sales spot or something. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So at Journey, we do recruiting and training for freight brokerages and freight tech companies. So most of our clients are brokerages looking to add sales talent or executive leadership. On the recruiting side, we place a ton of different roles. And then on the training side, we focus most on shipper-facing sales. Over time, we're going to be able to build that out. But right now, we're teaching reps how to build their books of business. And so we've got a handful of offerings. The first one is the Academy. It's a monthly subscription to access the courses that we have and then have access to our community. So we run live community sessions 2 times a month, where we talk about everything from how to build your LinkedIn presence to work through RFP cycles. The one we have on Tuesday is how to manage an RFP cycle. And the idea behind it is, if you've got hungry, ambitious people that want to learn and they want resources that maybe aren't available at the organization they're at today, and they want to be able to learn from other people in the space, let's give them a space to do that. So you can pay to access the courses. We do live stuff. You can network with other supply chain professionals. My favorite part is seeing the Slack group light up. Like, people ask questions all day. I'm working through this, or, what's a good way to handle this objection? So that's the first part, the Academy. The second part that we launched most recently is our sales bootcamp. So I'll be facilitating a 3-day live training via Zoom, where people will learn everything from how to cold call to how to run a formal sales call, manage their pipeline, handle objections. And the reason why we did this is because we have consulting clients that we do work with from the executive level all the way to their sales teams. And a lot of them are saying, hey, this would be really valuable if you did what you do with us, teaching our reps to, the broader public. So they said, shoot, let's go ahead and give it a rip. And the response has been incredible. Had a Q&A a couple of days ago. I've had 5 people sign up. So we have 5 spots left. It's a small cohort, so 10 people total. But the idea behind it is just, hey, how do you make sure that people know how to build their book of business? If they have questions, they have resources. So we'll go through that over the course of 3 days. And then the last offering we have right now is an AI role-playing tool that allows people to practice 24/7. So if Matt were a food and beverage shipper in the dairy vertical, we've got an AI bot just like that that's going to respond the way a transportation manager would on a cold call, a discovery call, a warm call. And so we continue to make more and more iterations of the bots because in my experience, the more you practice, the better you get at your pitch. You don't need to be perfect, but you need to be able to work through certain things and seem comfortable and confident. And so if you don't get a bunch of repetitions doing that early on, it's really, really tough to build your book because people shut you down and you say stuff and you're like, shoot, that sounded dumb, or I wasn't comfortable with responding to that. And some organizations don't do any role playing, like no practice, no training, no role playing. Well, you can do it on demand 24/7. So we have clients on the brokerage side that license it. They use our training and then they let their reps use the AI role playing tool. And then we have individuals that license it on their own as well. But everyone that is in our sales bootcamp will get access to the AI role playing tool for a month as part of the bootcamp package.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Do you guys break it down too? Like I was just watching a podcast, I think, with the CEO of Steam, and they were breaking down kind of their model, where they have more of a cradle to grave pod model, where they're going after more, they have teams built out for other things, but more the SMB, whereas, Coyote reps may be going after $2 billion shippers. Do you guys kind of have it, tailored towards, different different levels or different types of companies, just like different industries as well? Or is it kind of just sales in general?
So the training is shipper facing sales in general. I wouldn't say that it's more applicable to SMB, mid-market, or enterprise. It's applicable to all of them. If you're doing any type of cold outreach, if you're trying to figure out how to write your messaging, identify what's a good prospect, understand how to manage your pipeline, regardless of segment or vertical you're selling to, those things will apply. And in the beginning of the course, actually day one, we'll be laying the base for how do you understand what someone across each of those verticals is going to care about. So a food and beverage shipper that delivers to McLean cares about on-time delivery, not missing appointments, like orders being delivered in full, things of that nature. But you might have a first come, first serve shipper that doesn't really have the stringent delivery requirements. And so they need the best rates, right? But if you don't understand how to have the conversation with that decision maker, you're not going to be able to resonate your message with them. So lay the base. How do you talk to these people so that you seem like you know what you're talking about? Because we've all been there, right? I don't want people to, fake it till you make it, but you got to have some information on what people care about to be able to tailor your message.
100%. Is that harder to sell? Was that kind of like I guess I'm kind of curious what kind of the biggest surprises were for you coming into the recruitment and training? Because obviously you saw it at Coyote, MoLo, but when you get into that role, you see it at all these other companies. Were there any particular things that kind of, surprised you? I mean, are there a lot of companies that, maybe, everyone's wanting salespeople, for example, in this market, as I'm sure but is there the same level of enthusiasm you see on the training aspect, or is that kind of the harder part of your business to, sell or get across the, importance of?
I wouldn't say either side of the business has surprised me, because I think the only true differentiator for most organizations is talent. So if you are better at what you do, let's just call it what it is. We've all been in brokerage. We're going to call drivers similar capacity pool. We're going to use similar tools, cloud-based TMS, DAT, truck stop to source capacity, use rating tools, right? All of us have access to those things. If your people are better at their jobs, they're going to provide a better service to your shippers and your carriers, which in turn allows you to get more business and grow successfully. So everybody wants strong talent regardless of role. And I think if you can identify that talent, and for us, our value is sifting through the noise to present candidates that are incredible at what they do, so our clients don't have to do that, or maybe they don't have the reach to get in front of them. I haven't found that, that wasn't surprising to me. I figured that would probably be the case. On the training side, I'm actually surprised by how many companies don't have training, which I knew, but it is more prevalent than I thought. And most of the training is, hey, sit next to Will. Will's one of our best brokers. Listen to him make some calls. Here's how our TMS works. Go get him, buddy. And I'm like, yikes, that is tough.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that yesterday. We had Nick on the show, and he was saying, and it made some sense, that, sometimes the best brokers are the worst trainers, because some of the things that made them good does not make them good at necessarily teaching other people. And I hadn't thought about that before, but, thinking of some of the really good sellers I know, I could see them not necessarily being great trainers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What I really like about, well, I mean, what you're describing, right? You're talking about, everybody wants and needs talent, right? And a lot of times, maybe we look at people and sometimes it's, do they have it or do they not have it, right? But with a tool like you're describing, where you can get reps and you can build that talent. So somebody that you're looking at for a position, they might not be where you want them to be, but you're providing like a steps for them to become that person, right? With this training, and then 24/7 access. Some people are real go-getters and will be getting those reps in. You're not having to, tell them and watch them to train. Like some people want to be better and they're not really sure how to access that information. It seems like you're providing that for them.
Absolutely. I mean, what I'm going to say now is counterintuitive to one half of our business, but I think the best talent is homegrown. Like it learns how to do the job from the best people, and you put mechanisms in place to allow them to understand what y'all do. But typically, those end up being your strongest, longest tenured employees because they do the business, they do the work the way you would expect them to. It's really specific to the type of business that you manage. So, is that counterintuitive to recruiting? Yeah, kind of, because in placements, right, we're going and getting people and with experience and putting them in roles, right? But sometimes you have to slow down to speed up if you want your people to be successful, and you need to put things in place to take someone that might be green, either fresh out of college or new to the industry. And if they've got the right characteristics to be a successful employee, now you need to teach them the space. But if you're not willing to do that, you're never going to get that return.
It's interesting. I was to say, it's interesting you say that because we had the COO of Hometown Logistics, which I think is 250, 300 million. They started in 2017. And he was saying on our show, they've taken no one from other brokerages. It's 100%, homegrown
I love
bartenders, and I can't think of too many brokerages that have started in 2017 and other than MoLo and, Arrive maybe, but they've got up to 250, 300 million in, 7 years just with no experience. So it's kind of interesting, to see that really homegrown can work that model too. Not that, taking people with experience doesn't work too. A lot of companies, do that and do that well, but I'd never heard a story quite like that. So which is kind of what you're saying now. So
I love that. And that's awesome to hear, because if you're willing to, spend the time to do it, it's certainly fruitful, but it takes longer. There's more work involved. So it's, kind of how life works, right? If it takes longer, it's more work involved. Most people don't want to do it. So
100%. Yeah, maybe you don't see the return on it immediately, right? So yeah, everybody wants the guy that's plug and play. You're going to bring you, however much money a month, as opposed to investing and spending the time with the new people to, create that. The idea of building brokers versus buying brokers.
Yep.
Well, the turnover rate costs too. I don't know. I've never owned a brokerage or know really nothing about what goes into it, but I can't imagine that, if you hire 5 people and you do poor training and 4 leave and you have to rehire 4, like how expensive that is with all the benefits and, the recruiting costs and all that. So, if you don't have proper training, it's some brokers, I'm guessing, are spending a lot more than they really know just because of poor training would be my guess without knowing.
Good. How many times have you tried to do something for the first time and you were bad at it, and so you didn't return to that skill or that thing because it was uncomfortable and you were bad? You're like, man, I didn't really like that. Like, I'm probably not going to do that again. Somebody's doing that right now at a brokerage. They just got hung up on by a shipper, or a carrier said something they didn't like, and they're like, man, carrier sales isn't for me. But it's for you if you get the right support to learn how to work through those things. And it costs so much money to go and find talent that it seems crazy to not invest in their success, at least in their first 90 days, to get them up to speed, to go and do the job well, because it's so expensive to go and find new people. It's hard to think about doing that.
Yeah, we're just having people that aren't where they need to be on payroll. If you like the time to get to where you need to be, if you 2-3x it, it's just loss. If you're speaking cradle to graves, it takes somebody 6 or 9 months versus 3 months with some good, mindful training. Just little things like the true value of retention and employment, I guess.
Totally.
Where do you, I guess, kind of going on the recruiting side too? Where do you kind of see are you starting to see more carrier sales roles come back? I know I've seen, and I guess non-sales roles, just operations in general. I know for a while we weren't seeing any, but some recruiters I know in the W-2 world are telling me they're, seeing a lot more. Some are slowly seeing some operations roles coming back, which is good to hear.
Yeah, so we've got some some clients that have built strong businesses and have been adding non-sales talent quarterly because their business is growing. I've seen that obviously less, a little bit fewer and further between. A couple more carrier sales roles, a couple more account management or ops focused roles, mostly revenue generating roles, but a little bit. So we'll see if the signs of life are real.
So what's your take on that? I mean, we were talking to Nick, it got me thinking, do you think that people should get the carrier sales in place, maybe if the business isn't there yet, in preparation for if and when things do pick up? Or do you think that the sales should come first? Like which part of the business do you think that you should build out, or should it be kind of equal?
Gosh darn chicken or the egg, right? Like where do we go?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people.
It's hard. So
yeah,
this is a hot take, but this is legitimately what I think. I was talking to one of our consulting clients about this yesterday. I think that you should be managing the business to get the absolute most out of everyone that is not in sales, so you understand what the true capacity is from an operations perspective. So how many loads can we actually manage with the carrier sales team or the ops team that we have today? Like we're bursting at the seams, right? Maybe it's 15 loads per day for an ops rep, depending on the complexity of the account, or 10 to 12 loads per day for a carrier rep, right? I have to know what that is before I add anybody else, because our business is too cyclical to just go and have people and then you water it down. So now instead of a rep having access to 10 to 12 loads a day, like there's 7 because you added another rep and they're covering that freight. Not that we don't want to be able to add that proactive capacity, but you don't know what your team's capable of producing until you put some stress on that to know, okay, this is the cap of what we do. At that point, then you have to have an idea of forecasting to know what business may come, because you could be at capacity, but if you don't convert RFPs or add new business, then you got people sitting waiting for loads to build, or waiting for loads to cover. So I think there should be a lot of focus on understanding what is the max capacity of the current before you even go and add new. And then how do you have layers or systems in place so that you're doing proactive capacity with the current group? Because that business may convert, or you might be waiting for an RFP to turn. But if it doesn't, you don't want to be sitting with a bunch of extra carrier reps that don't have any loads to book, or a bunch of extra ops reps that don't have any loads to manage. So I think you need to know what your team can do on a low per day basis before you go and add.
Yeah, I mean, I think also that the expectations, right? So you're talking about going from like 12 to 7. They come in, they're used to 7, but they might be capable of 12 to 14, but you've never stress tested or really put it on them. So then they're comfortable in this kind of area, right? But really, like you could be maybe 2-3xing what you're doing, but you've come in and it's been the standard that this is it, right? And then you're building it out, and it's tough really to stay lean, and the whole expectations of the company, they just don't match or blend, if that makes sense.
Totally. I mean, it's just, there are so many things outside of our control and freight that make it hard to manage headcount well and forecast, that the last thing you want to do is be overstaffed when you don't have a lot of contractual business that you can count on being able to get back. And then you're sitting there with people, and now you've got to make really, really tough decisions about whether or not you can retain them, or do you need to let them go? Like, that sucks for everybody involved. And so if you can understand, hey, this is the most we can do with what we got to stress test that. It's the best way to be able to understand if you're in the right position to go and add new people.
Yeah, I like that. And then, I don't mean to backtrack, but Matt, you mentioned a podcast that you're listening to with Steam, where they've kind of got it split out, right? Where maybe one section is going after small to medium, and they've got maybe some strategic teams for larger volume accounts. I mean, that's the thing that at Black Box, at least that we and I've had to look at with like building out teams versus cradle to grave, is the accounts that they're actually working, right? Because if I'm working an enterprise shipper with a nice clean TMS and I've got some stuff automated, the load count per head is going to be much more than if I'm building out a team and they're toggling 15 small to medium sized shippers who are disorganized, and then my expectations for those. So I think that I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a loaded question, right? And there's so many nuances or variables that can kind of shift it, but it's an interesting topic.
Totally. I mean, I think the dynamics of your business are going to dictate the type of people you need to be able to manage it, exactly like you said, right? An enterprise shipper is very different than an SMB shipper. And so the resources that you need to execute that type of freight is different. Margin profiles are different. And so that should be taken into account to understand, hey, well, we might only need one more person to manage this type of business, where if we're going to do this successful, you got to go add 2 or 3. You got to take those things into account.
Yeah, lots to weigh.
Do you see Rob's comment with the AI tool, Will?
Oh yeah, Rob, thanks for tuning in. He says
let's go, Rob.
Yeah, let's go, Rob. Yeah, we used an AI tool for training our sales team. It was a game changer for speeding up the ramp up time to get talent ready to produce.
That hypes me up.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's getting more popular for sure. I think it's pretty cool. 10 years ago, you couldn't do anything like that, obviously. Now technology is going to change just the training, automation. So many things are going to change. It's kind of fun.
Totally.
I guess kind of on the topic too of different structures and training too. Is that are you seeing a lot of people to switching over where you're seeing cradle to grave reps switching to customer sales reps or customer sales reps switching to cradle to grave? I mean, is that you're seeing a lot of switch over right now within companies, or how do you think that's more challenging? Because I always wonder. Too, there's, sometimes, cradle to grave reps who are focused on knowing a little bit of everything in some ways, and they haven't spent just all day doing sales. And sometimes it's, the customer side, they've never booked a truck. So it's kind of cool to see all the different structures and logistics, and there's, pros and cons to every one, but it's always fun kind of talking to people who are switching from one side to the other, I notice.
So are you asking, am I seeing a lot of brokerages change their model, or a lot of reps leave and go to an organization that has a different model than they came from?
Yeah, I guess a better question, more simplified, would be like with the training. I mean, are you kind of having to do, different type of training if a cradle to grave rep is becoming a customer sales rep, or if a customer sales rep is going over to cradle to grave? I guess from both a recruitment, and a training, and a training standpoint.
Yeah. So the skill set necessary to manage a cradle to grave book is distinctly different than a split model book. So a lot of times you'll see someone's going to gravitate to one function or another. So if you're a cradle to grave seller today, you might love hunting and adding new business, but the way the business is set up, you got to book the trucks and operate the freight too, and you probably hate that. And so a lot of times you see people learn the business and the model that they're in, and then they gravitate to the function that best suits them. And so we'll see that a lot of times when we go and recruit and add people, because we'll ask about, hey, like, what are you looking for? And a lot of times reps will say, I don't want a cradle to grave role. If they're in a cradle to grave role right now and they just want to sell, but they know that's just not the model of the organization. Vice versa, if someone's in a split model, it's super rare, at least from what I've seen, that they willingly go to a cradle to grave model, because they have support. People are helping to manage, book, operate the freight. So there's genuinely less work to do. Sure, they'll probably get paid the smaller commission, but like, you're building a book in a split model, you probably don't want to leave that to go do twice the amount of work to manage the book that you have. So a lot of times people gravitate to the function they enjoy, and you'll see cradle to grave reps go, shoot, I'm just better at booking trucks, right? Like, I don't really care for the shipper side. Sure, I can land and I can do that, but like, I'd rather develop relationships with carrier partners. And sometimes they find their lane doing that.
Yeah, that's kind of how we evolved with Black Box. We started purely cradle to grave across the board, and then what we found is we would hire people as a cradle to grave, and if it just wasn't a good fit for them, like we give them some time, but they might be better suited for a carrier sales or a dispatch role, then we kind of shift them and we build it out where we're kind of split down the middle, with half teams being a split model and the other half being cradle to grave. Or even, I got a couple BDRs who are killer sales guys, but like them trying to manage a cradle to grave book was awful. So the customer just cycle, right? They're always landing these accounts, but nothing's sticking because they're not good at operations, right? So that's how we've kind of evolved from the pure cradle to grave. And then, our brokers are cradle to graves. When they get to a certain amount on a 6-week rolling average, we move them into a team with the dispatch, carrier sales, track and trace, and the BDR's accounts. And it lowers their split, right? But everybody's always very excited about it, because what you're talking about, right? I mean, the difference, which I was a cradle to grave broker for some years and had a very large book of business. And now I've got an ops team, and I can't even imagine like going back to doing what I was doing. It's not sustainable unless you're just, fully on it. If you want to run a big book as a cradle to grave over a long period of time, there's no balance at all. It's very, very extreme, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. It takes a particular type of person to want to do that.
They're a little bit different
all the time, like all the time. And like, if that's your thing and the organization pays you well and you feel good about it, like, go crazy. But most people figure out that, shoot, there's a ceiling to what I'm able to produce. And so if there's a way for me to pay to get some support, or maybe this role, I got to go do carrier sales. I'm better at that. That's what I enjoy. Freight is tough as is, so you might as well figure out doing something that you like and you're compensated well for. It's a hard job.
Yeah, I think the other issue too is you see, and I say this as someone who liked cradle to grave, I enjoy it, but I still see the downside, because you'd have a lot of cradle to grave people who have built up their business and were making good money, and they're so busy that a lot of the sellers don't have time to add on new business, and they're comfortable in the money they're making. So it's yeah, I definitely see that side. It's fun getting to do both sides though. I enjoyed that, but it's it's definitely, I can see how it can be hard for certain businesses to grow out to with that model. But then you see, I don't know, but then you see some big brokerages have, and you've seen some in the splits. Just, I don't know. We could go on for days. It's such an interesting topic. That's why this business is so cool. But
well, I had one more take on, at least the way I see it when building out Black Box and looking at it with a long time perspective is man, if I'm a cradle to grave and I'm putting up crazy numbers and like I'm not getting any support, I'm just going to go be an agent, right? So we're trying to give people the support to like make their life a little bit better so that they're not resentful in 3 years. Like, I'm just going to go be an agent, because why not? You're doing the same exact thing. Matt's probably why you left, right? You're doing cradle to grave, you're not getting any help, and you're like, oh, I can just go and do something else. So I think it's also kind of strategic in a sense, at least the way that we try to go about it. It's a little bit of rhyme to the reason.
I'm actually curious you brought that up. Now I'm curious Will's point on this from a recruitment standpoint. Because what I noticed, kind of to Will's point, is if you have a split model for a company, for customer retention, the account manager, the carrier sales, the customer rep, all has a role with that customer, because you hear a lot about transferable books of business right now.
Fake news, they do not exist.
Yeah.
No such thing.
I see less transferable books when I'm talking to customer reps. The books that I have seen transfer over, and not all transfer, are more likely to come from cradle to grave reps, because they're the only ones that have that relationship. And normally it's an SMB account, where they're an enterprise account. There's a lot more steps that have to go through. So I'm curious if you see that too, if the split model is generally protects your employees and your customers more, whereas the cradle to grave brokerages, you're more at risk if your employees leave. There's a lot better chance that the customers are going with it. That's just a theory of mine from what I've seen on the recruiting, but it's easier for me to recruit cradle to grave W-2 reps than it is for me to recruit, split model reps. Just, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but.
Yeah, I think you summed it up very well. If I'm looking at the style and complexity of account, let's say that an SMB account is someone that generates $250 million in annual revenue for their business. So 250 million or below, not a small company, but we're not talking about Home Depot and Coca-Cola, right? We're 250 million below. It's probably one decision maker. A lot of times, no contract. Emails are going out for load tenders, maybe in Excel. And so there's a one-to-one relationship with the decision maker, and then like accounting. It's way easier to go to my next brokerage and say, hey, can I get some freight? Because there's only one person to sign off on that, than it is to get Home Depot to send me a contract. I red line that bad boy. They don't like the red lines. My new company doesn't like their contract. They've already run their RFP. Eventually you can win that business, but it's probably 12, 18, 24 months once you do the song and dance, because it's just a more complex cycle. Even if the person ultimately likes you, there's so many more things in place, and that business infrastructure, like you said, is way more solidified. So there's an AM with the relationship. Typically there's an executive with a relationship. There's some sort of carrier density. You might have drop trailers in place. Like, you'll get the business eventually, but it's not happening in the first 6 months. It just takes a long time to unwind that and earn your opportunity in the new spot, even if they already like you. It's just way more complex.
That was my experience when I left. So I left a brokerage and weighed out some contracts, and I weighed them out fully. But I mean, going into it, I had all these customers in the back of my pocket. I was like, oh man, like at this date, like I'm going to go get them all back. And that just wasn't reality. There's a lot of different things that can happen, right? So the idea of a transferable book, if you are waiting out a contract, it's, a lot changes in a year, right? Like business must go on, life must go on. They find new vendors. And a lot of it I've been able to get back, and I work with them now, but it wasn't just that when the date hit on the calendar, I'm making my phone calls, and I'm like, we're good, gentlemen. I got my book. I didn't have it. Yeah.
You know, it's funny that you said that, right? Because you've lived it out. You're like, I know I can get the business, but like, it's not going to be today. It's going to take me some
I thought
time.
it was going to be today. It was a reality check for me. It was a rough day leaving the office. It's like, man, I guess, back to the grind.
You're like, it ain't that sweet. I thought I was just going to turn that business on.
Exactly. Yeah.
That makes sense. I think that's why, a lot of, companies probably, for aside to other reasons we talked about, but it makes sense to do the split model because you hold on to your accounts better,
I mean, yes, but it's way more costly. It costs a lot more to have the definition of split model can mean a lot of things. It can mean just customer and carrier sales with no ops. It can mean customer sales, customer operations and carrier sales. It can mean customer sales, account management, customer ops. So all that has a lot of costs associated with it. And yeah, you can retain the business, but you got to make sure that you're operating it profitably for all those different roles and headcount to make sense.
I mean, it's a lot more to take on from a management or like ownership position too, because you're having to build out SOPs for all those positions, different accounts, and then just people in general, right? People leave or something happens. You got to make sure that everything's full functioning. And then, man, just team dynamics, right? Like you got maybe like your team leader, somebody that's kind of in charge, but you're having to step in. It's cradle to grave, at least in my opinion, is much less maintenance, right? To get one individual up and going and sustainable and profitable, as opposed to building out a team. So again, we do both, right? But at least my take and stance on it is that the team system is more sustainable long term, but it is more work in it, and it is costly. And there's a lot of, at least for us, we've had to do a lot with it over time, a lot of maintenance.
Totally.
Matt, did we lose you?
Conversation got good. We lost Matt. I hate to see it.
Yeah, happens. I guess, but the conversation's got to go on, right?
Yeah.
So with Journeyman, with you guys recruiting, I would imagine, I know Matt mentioned some of the carrier sales reps, but I'd imagine it's mostly like higher level positions that people are coming to you for. I mean, like really like revenue producers, right? BDRs, that sort of thing.
Yep. So most of my relationships are with owners and CEOs of brokerages, anywhere between 10 million and then some of the multi-billion players, right? And so a lot of what people are looking for generally is revenue producing roles. So we do a ton of experienced sales roles, but most of our placements are director level or above, because I think having a partner in a recruiting company that you can trust to verify and vet and work through all these things to know if this person is worth being able to bring on is important. So I think I've been able to build a lot of relationships the last 10 years in the space. And so we're going to do our due diligence to make sure we find the right people for these organizations that trust us. But most of what we're doing, experienced sales roles, director level and above across a bunch of different departments.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about those relationships, and then just with your history, right? Like you co-founded this company and were able to. It was acquired, right? So you definitely have the reputation, or at least the the work history to prove that you know what you're talking about, right? I mean, maybe with some recruiters, which I don't deal with any recruiters, but I would imagine a lot of people run into and they're like, does this guy really know what he's talking about or doing? Can I trust his opinion, input, or even the ability to gauge the talent of an individual? Like when you look at them and talk to them and you're pre-screening. Otherwise, maybe some recruiting firms are just whoever they can get, and they're bringing out like, hey, man, this is your guy. And the guy could be worthless, but I feel like if the recommendation came from Will Jenkins, you can put a little bit of weight in it.
Absolutely. I think it's just a different process between myself and the owner, CEO, executives that are signing off on, we're going to use this organization to do some recruiting, because I've been in their seat and I've worked through the challenges that they're working through. And so you can ask me whatever questions you want. I'll shoot you straight. I'm going to tell you what we think makes sense. I'm going to tell you what doesn't make sense based on the experience that we have. And I think that that's valued because I've done what they're trying to do at different scales. And so it makes it a lot more fun to have the conversations, because we want to be a partner, right? Like I'm not really interested in trying to place people because the business, it's got to make a lot of money, right? I'd rather be really, really good and very, very trusted by our partners to know that when you come to us, you're getting the best. And sometimes that comes with like walking away from opportunities too, if we know that we're not able to fulfill it, or if we know that something's not a fit. And I think that, garners a lot of respect from people and allows us to be able to succeed.
100%. I feel like you always got to watch out for the people that always just bring you good news, right? They never shoot you straight or give you bad news or tell you how it is. So, man, being a founder and CEO of a company and trying to build it out, right, and being able to walk away from deals because it might not be a good fit is I mean, 100%, I feel like would pay you more on the long term, right? You're going to retain that customer. They're going to respect you. But if you place a shitty candidate and they get them in, and like within a week, they're like, man, we can't trust Jenkins or Journey anymore. So I think that's very powerful. Matt,
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, sorry about that. Some technical issues, but I was listening to that. I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of misconception too on recruiting is, I mean, some brokerages have some unrealistic expectations. Like sometimes I'm sure you've encountered this. I want someone with $100K book of business in a small town, in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. And I want them in a week. There's just
we all want 100K.
Yeah,
we all want somebody with 100K book of business, man. If you can find me one, send me tomorrow. I'll onboard them.
But I was just curious too, Will. I know we see you at a lot of different events too. Journey's doing some happy hour. I've seen you at a couple different conferences. How kind of important has that been for your business? Kind of, you've gotten your name out there in a lot of different places.
So the conferences and live FaceTime stuff, I think, super important. Every time we go to a conference, we typically leave with quite a few contracts. But the idea of the conference is not to be salesy. I think that stuff is kind of annoying. I see it happen sitting there watching from afar, and I'm like, oh my goodness, man, you're laying it on too thick. Like, you got to back off a little bit. Man, I'm here to like make relationships, get to know people. And typically that converts to opportunities that turn into business, but you're not going to get those opportunities if you're not in the room, right? So if I've been trying to connect with someone, even if it's just to chop it up and say, what's going on, it's easier to do that in person. So we try to get to as many as we can. And then in Chicago, I think it's the best hub for freight. There's so many companies here. So we do a fair amount of happy hours just to get the community together. I think people want to have like-minded people to connect with. And our happy hours, to be honest with you, don't have like a desired result, right? I'm not trying to like sign new contracts from them. I just want really good people having conversations, and typically that leads to business. And the same thing with like LinkedIn and marketing type stuff. I think if you have a very focused effort on, hey, we want to build a brand so that people find us to be trustworthy and see what we're able to do, a lot of times it's a slow process, but it'll convert to business. And so we need to be very, very deliberate about that. And our marketing team and our head of marketing is incredible. So very happy to have them.
Yeah, man, you got that one. I don't know her name, but she travels a lot. She's gone viral quite a few times.
Oh, Morgan. Yeah.
She posts some cool stuff. I just pop up on my feed. I'm like, good for her.
Absolutely. She's in Alaska right now.
Yeah, I'll be in Alaska in a couple of weeks, actually.
Enjoy it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Someone speaking of Morgan, someone made a great post about her. I think it was just yesterday. It showed up on my feed. A candidate about how she had talked to Morgan a year ago, wasn't ready for a job. And then she remembered that conversation with Morgan, reached out to her, and she just placed her. And I thought that was a really cool story.
Yes. It's the best, man. I mean, like, you never know how things are going to play out. And so it's always better. Build relationships, be a good person, follow through, do what you say you're going to do. 12 months from now, you never know what that person's going to be, or how that relationship could flourish. So super important.
Yeah, or even if you're taking the approach you're talking about, right? Even if if I didn't have a need for the service right now, but you chop it up with me and I enjoy talking to you, and then somebody I know needs that service, I'll probably send them your way. But if you come up and try to do the hard sell, and it's just uncomfortable for both of us, I don't want to talk to you, because I think that if I do, you're just going to try to, push something on me that I don't want. So I'm just going to go give it to somebody that I know isn't going to do that, right? So yeah, I think that, I don't know, I agree with that take on at least networking and all that good stuff.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. I'm aligned with that for sure.
Yeah.
It must be fun to be a fly at the wall, though. I'm going to my first conference this fall, and I hear all these stories of these hard sells at the conference. I'm kind of excited to be a fly on the wall and see some of these interactions in person.
They are bananas. My favorite thing to do is just be around and watch brokers or freight tech companies try to sell things to each other, or brokers try to sell things to shippers at conferences. And I'm like, man, you're out here getting cuts. Like, they are not interested. And it's just so funny to watch, because if you're just like a normal person that's easy to talk to and not annoying, you'll get the business eventually. You do need to know what you're doing. You have to be able to demonstrate some expertise and value, but be normal, especially in a live environment. And it's so funny to watch. So enjoy. It's like, get your popcorn ready. It's good.
I feel like we're going to need to clip that. Just be normal and you'll get the business.
You just be a normal person.
Yeah. I mean,
Do you see some people just like looking at name tags like, oh, is this a
Bruh.
person I want to sell, and like just being super awkward?
So check this out. I was at this was TIA. I was going to say Manifest. It was at TIA. So it was in Arizona, and I think DAT was having the after like happy hour from like 6 to 8 or whatever. So everyone's there, and so you're looking around and checking out the names. That's what everybody's doing, and see a freight tech player come up to a rather prominent brokerage and just like immediately hard sell, like we're doing this, and I'm like, I was engaged in the conversation with them, and I was like, yo, this is wild, like absolutely bananas. And I, shook hands, Harm, go ahead and get out of here. But like, why can't we just talk? Like, we've been talking about freight all day. Can't we just like be normal people that aren't just so aggressively over the top? So it was interesting.
Yeah.
What conferences you got lined up for this fall?
I will probably be at Freight Waves. I'm actually memeing my way to Freight Waves. I'm 266 days and 266 out of 365. So I'll probably need to send Craig a note to be like, are you really giving free tickets to people that meme for a year? Because I'm 100 days out or 99 days out. So I'm going to be there, either free or paid. And probably the TIA event, and then nothing else planned right now, but then Manifest early next year, and then the big TIA event again.
Very cool.
There seems to be more and more conferences popping up, which is cool. It's hard to pick ones to go to, I'm sure.
It is, yeah. You want to, if you're deciding what conference makes sense, like just make sure your customers are going to be there, and you should rank them based on ability to secure new business. It's super important to get the ROI from being there. They're not cheap, and they take time.
Well, it was fun having you on, Will. I don't know if there's anything else we haven't touched on, but we kind of went a lot of different areas, but it was really fun. Time kind of flew by. So
absolutely. Thank y'all for the time. I really appreciate it. And you guys keep chipping away. It's always cool to see your content and whatnot. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks again for spending your Friday with us. And we'll have to do it again at some point. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, awesome. Y'all have a great weekend. Thank you very much.
You too. Thanks, Will.
All right, man. Episode 19. Yeah, smart guy, man. I really enjoyed that.
You can just tell, he knows what he's talking about, which is why it's always fun talking, seeing Will's stuff, watching his videos, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. My favorite part about it was just be normal. That was a good take. I'm gonna clip that one and post it.
100%. Well, shout out to our sponsors, Black Box HD. If you're looking to be an agent, hit me up. If you're looking to work in Birmingham, hit Will up. Shout out to say that again.
I just said the Magic City. That's what they call Birmingham. Yeah.
Shout out to Multi-Service Fuel Card. Like I said, Jessica's fantastic over there. They've been in business since 1978. Tons of experience. Reach out to them if you're looking to get a fuel card or learn anything about fuel cards. Trio doing our back end. Sales Dash, Freight Specific CRM, obviously brought to you by TAFs. We can't say enough good things about them. Premier factoring company, great communication, great rates, great people. I don't know if you have anything else to add in any of that, Will.
No, I mean, we love all of our sponsors. TAF's a great group. Black Box uses Sales Dash CRM, Trio for some nearshoring, and then Multi-Service is a great group as well. Started by an over-the-road trucker. They're just good people. So, we love our sponsors. We think that we got the best sponsors out there.
I know, 100%. Well, have a good weekend, Will. We'll see you next week.
All right, back at next week, Matt. I'll see you.
All right, see you.